Who'd like to kick off?
I can start.
Thanks, Cheryl. If everyone else can mute themselves.
Yeah, that'll make it easier for me. Okay, so where and how one may find opportunities to accumulate riches. Now that we have analyzed the principles by which riches may be accumulated, we naturally ask, where may one find favorable opportunities to apply these principles? Very well, let us take inventory and see what the United States of America offer the person seeking riches, great or small. To begin with, let us remember, all of us, that we live in a country where every law-abiding citizen enjoys freedom of thought and freedom of deed unequaled anywhere in the world. Most of us have never taken inventory of the advantages of this freedom. We have never compared our unlimited freedom with the curtailed freedom in other countries. Here we have freedom of thought, freedom in choice and enjoyment of education, freedom in religion, freedom in politics, freedom in the choice of a business, profession, or occupation, freedom to accumulate and own without molestation all the property we can accumulate, freedom to choose our place of residence, freedom in marriage, freedom through equal opportunity to all races, freedom of travel from one state to another, freedom in our choice of foods, and freedom to aim for any station in life for which we have prepared ourselves, even for the presidency of the United States. We have other forms of freedom, but this list will give a bird's eye view of the most important, which constitute opportunity of the highest order. This advantage of freedom is all the more conspicuous because the United States is the only country guaranteeing to every citizen, whether native-born or naturalized, so broad and varied a list of freedom. And I have to trump in and say Canada does too. Next, let us recount some of the blessings which our widespread freedom has placed within our hands. Take the average American family, for example, meaning the family of average income, and sum up the benefits available to every member of the family in this land of opportunity and plenty. A, food. Next to freedom, the thought and deed comes food, clothing, and shelter, the three basic necessities of life. Because of our universal freedom, the average American family has available at its very door the choicest selection of food to be found anywhere in the world and at prices within its financial range. A family of two living in the heart of Times Square district of New York, far removed from the sources of production of foods, took careful inventory of the cost of a simple breakfast with this astonishing result. Articles of food, cost at the breakfast table, grapefruit juice from Florida. Oh my goodness, is this like cents? Rippled wheat breakfast food, Kansas. Tea from China, bananas from South America, toasted bread from Kansas farm, fresh country eggs from Utah, sugar from Cuba or Utah, butter and cream from New England, and a grand total of 20 cents. It is not very difficult to obtain food in a country where two people can have breakfast consisting of all they want or need for a dime apiece. Observe that this simple breakfast was gathered by some strange form of magic. Hi.
Oh, hello, hi there.
Excuse me, did we get switched over to Skype or are we staying on the other one?
No, we're still on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Somebody must have called on Skype.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, it's me, Zain here. I'll just shut this off.
Okay, thanks. So am I still okay? Can everybody still hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you well.
Okay, good. Okay, and I'll just finish this paragraph and let someone take over. So we were talking about it's not very difficult to obtain food in a country where two people can have breakfast consisting of all they want or need for a dime apiece. Observe that this simple breakfast was gathered by some strange form of magic from China, South America, Utah, Kansas, and the New England states, and delivered on the breakfast table ready for consumption in the very heart of the most crowded city in America at a cost well within the means of the most humble laborer. Okay, would somebody else like to take over?
I will. The cost included all federal, state, and city taxes. Here is a fact the politicians did not mention when they were crying out to the voters to throw their opponents out of office because the people were being taxed to death. B, shelter. This family lives in a comfortable apartment heated by steam, lighted with electricity, with gas for cooking, all for $65 a month. In a smaller city or a more sparsely settled part of New York City, the same apartment could be had for as low as $20 a month. The toast they had for breakfast in the food estimate was toasted on an electric toaster, which cost but a few dollars. The apartment is cleaned with a vacuum cleaner that is run by electricity. Hot and cold water is available at all times in the kitchen and the bathroom. The food is kept cool in a refrigerator that is run by electricity. The wife curls her hair, washes her clothes, and irons them with easily operated electrical equipment on power obtained by sticking a plug in the wall. The husband shaves with an electric shaver, and they receive entertainment from all over the world 24 hours a day if they want it without cost by merely turning the dial of their radio. There are other conveniences in this apartment, but the foregoing list will give a fair idea of some of the concrete evidences of the freedom we of America enjoy. And this is neither political nor economic propaganda. Clothing, C. Anywhere in the United States, the woman of average clothing requirements can dress very comfortably and neatly for less than $200 a year, and the average man can dress for the same or less. Only the three basic necessities of food, clothing, and shelter have been mentioned. The average American citizen has other privileges and advantages available in return for modest effort, not exceeding 8 hours per day of labor. Among these is the privilege of automobile transportation, with which one can go and come at will at very small cost. The average American has security of property rights not found in any other country in the world. He can place his surplus money in a bank with the assurance that his government will protect it and make good to him if the bank fails. If an American citizen wants to travel from one state to another, he needs no passport, no one's permission. He may go when he pleases and return at will. Moreover, he may travel by train, private automobile, bus, airplane, or ship as his pocketbook permits. In Germany, Russia, Italy, and most of the other European and Oriental countries, the people cannot travel with so much freedom and at so little cost. Somebody else want to pick up?
Yeah, this is Tim. I'll join in. Okay, so the miracle that has provided these blessings. We often hear politicians proclaiming the freedom of America when they solicit votes, but seldom do they take the time to devote sufficient effort to the analysis of the source or nature of this freedom. Having no axe to grind, no grudge to express, no ulterior motives to be carried out, I have the privilege of going into a frank analysis of that mysterious, abstract, greatly misunderstood something which gives to every citizen of America more blessings, more opportunities to accumulate wealth, more freedom of every nature than may be found in any other country. I have the right to analyze the source and nature of this unseen power because I know and have known for more than a quarter of a century many of the men who organize that power and many who are now responsible for its maintenance. The name of this mysterious benefactor of mankind is capital. Capital consists not only of money, but more particularly of highly organized, intelligent groups of men who plan ways and means of using money efficiently for the good of the public and profitably to themselves. These groups consist of scientists, educators, chemists, inventors, business analysts, publicity men, transportation experts, accountants, lawyers, doctors, and both men and women who have highly specialized knowledge in all fields of industry and business. They pioneer, experiment, and blaze trails in new fields of endeavor. They support colleges, hospitals, public schools, build good roads, publish newspapers, pay most of the cost of government, and take care of the multitudinous detail essential to human progress. Stated briefly, the capitalists are the brains of civilization. Pardon me. The capitalists are the brains of civilization because they supply the entire fabric of which all education, enlightenment, and human progress consists. I'll pass with that.
Anyone like to carry on?
I'll do.
Thanks, Vlad.
So 1424. Money without brains always is dangerous. Properly used, this is the most important essential of civilization. The simple breakfast here described could not have been delivered to the New York family at a dime each, or at any other price if organized capital had not provided the machinery, the ships, the railroads, and the huge armies of trained men to operate them. Some slight idea of the importance of organized capital may be had by trying to imagine yourself burdened with the responsibility of collecting, without the aid of capital, and delivering to the New York City family the simple breakfast described. To supply the tea, you would have to make a trip to China or India, both a very long way from America. Unless you are an excellent swimmer, you could become rather tired before making the round trip. Then too, another problem would confront you. What would you use for money even if you had the physical endurance to swim the ocean? To supply the sugar, you would have to take another long swim to Cuba or a long walk to the sugar beet section of Utah. But even then, you might come back without the sugar, because organized effort and money are necessary to produce sugar, to say nothing of what is required to refine, transport, and deliver it to the breakfast table anywhere in the United States. The eggs you could deliver easily enough from the barnyards near New York City, but you would have a very long walk to Florida and return before you could serve the 2 glasses of grapefruit juice. You would have another long walk to Kansas or one of the other wheat-growing states when you went after the 4 slices of wheat bread. The rippled wheat biscuits would have to be omitted from the menu because they would not be available except through the labor of a trained organization of men and suitable machinery, or of which call for capital. While resting, you could take off for another little swim down to South America, where you would pick up a couple of bananas, and on your return you could take a short walk to the nearest farm having a dairy and pick up some butter and cream. Then your New York City family would be ready to sit down and enjoy breakfast, and you could collect your 2 dimes for your labor. Seems absurd, doesn't it? Well, the procedure described would be the only possible way these simple items of food could be delivered to the heart of New York City if we had no capitalistic system. The sum of money required for the building and maintenance of the railroads and steamships used in the delivery of the simple breakfast is so huge that it staggers one's imagination. It runs into hundreds of millions of dollars, not to mention the armies of trained employees required to man the ships and trains. But transportation is only a part of the requirements of modern civilization in capitalistic America. Before there can be anything to haul, something must be grown from the ground or manufactured and prepared for market. This calls for more millions of dollars for equipment, machinery, boxing, marketing, and for the wages of millions of men and women. I will pass.
I'd like to go next. Steamships and railroads do not spring up from the earth and function automatically. They come in response to the call of civilization, through the labor and ingenuity and organizing ability of men who have imagination, faith, enthusiasm, decision, and persistence. These men are known as capitalists. They are motivated by the desire to build, construct, achieve, render useful service, earn profits, and accumulate riches. And because they render service without which there would be no civilization, they put themselves in the way of great riches. Just to keep the record simple and understandable, I will add that these capitalists are the self-same men of whom most of us have heard soapbox opera speak. They are the same men to whom radicals, racketeers, dishonest politicians, and grafting labor leaders refer to as the predatory interests, or Wall Street. I am not attempting to present a brief or against any group of men or any system of economics. I am not attempting to condemn collective bargaining when I refer to grafting labor leaders, nor am I to give a clean bill of health to all individuals known as capitalists. The purpose of this book, a purpose to which I have faithfully devoted over a quarter of a century, is to present to all who want the knowledge the most dependable philosophy through which individuals may accumulate riches in whatever amounts they desire. I have here analyzed the economic advantages of the capitalistic system for the twofold purpose of showing, one, that all who seek riches must recognize and adapt themselves to the system that controls all approaches to fortunes, large or small, and two, to present the side of the picture opposite to that being shown by politicians and demagogues who deliberately decloud the issues they bring up by referring to organized capital as if it were something poisonous. This is a capitalistic country. It was developed through the use of capital, and we who claim the right to partake of the blessings of freedom and opportunity, we who seek to accumulate riches here, may as well know that neither riches nor opportunity would be available to us if organized capital had not provided these benefits. For more than 20 years, it has been a somewhat popular and growing pastime for radicals, self-seeking politicians, racketeers, crooked labor leaders, and on occasion, religious leaders, to take pot shots at Wall Street, the money changers, and big business. The practice became so general that we witnessed during the business depression the unbelievable sight of high government officials lining up with the cheap politicians and labor leaders with openly avowed purpose of throttling the system which has made industrial America the richest country on earth. The lineup was so general and so well organized that it prolonged the worst depression America has ever known. It cost millions of men their jobs because those jobs were inseparably a part of the industrial and capitalistic system which formed the very backbone of the nation. Pass.
Someone else like to go?
Yes, I will go on. During this unusual alliance of government officials and self-seeking individuals who were endeavoring to profit by declaring open season on the American system of industry, a certain type of labor leader joined forces with the politicians and offered to deliver voters in return for legislation designed to permit men to take riches away from industry by organized force of numbers instead of the better method of giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. Millions of men and women throughout the nation are still engaged in this popular pastime of trying to get without giving. Some of them are lined up with labor unions where they demand shorter hours and more pay. Others do not take the trouble to work at all. They demand government relief and are getting it. Their idea of their right of freedom was demonstrated in New York City, where violent complaint was registered with a postmaster by a group of relief beneficiaries because the postman awakened them at 7:30 a.m. to deliver government relief checks. They demanded that the time of delivery be set up to 10 o'clock. If you are one of those who believe that riches can be accumulated by the mere act of men who organize themselves into groups and demand more pay for less service, if you are one of those who demand government relief without early morning disturbance when the money is delivered to you, if you are one of those who believe in trading their votes to politicians in return for the passing of laws which permit the raiding of the public treasury, you may rest securely on your belief with certain knowledge that no one will disturb you, because this is a free country where every man may think as he pleases, where nearly everybody can live with but little effort, where many may live well without doing any work whatsoever. However, you should not know the full truth concerning this freedom, of which so many people boast and so few understand. As great as it is, as far as it reaches, as many privileges as it provides, it does not and cannot bring riches without effort. There is but one dependable method of accumulating and legally holding riches, and that is by rendering useful service. No system has ever been created by which man can legally acquire riches through mere force of numbers, or without giving in return an equivalent value of one form or another. There is a principle known as the law of economics. This is more than a theory. It is a law no man can beat. Pass.
Someone else like to read? Okay, I might have a read. Mark well the name of the principle, and remember it, because it is far more powerful than all the politicians and political machines. It is above and beyond the control of all the labour unions. It cannot be swayed, nor influenced, nor bribed by racketeers or self-appointed leaders in any calling. Moreover, it is an all-seeing eye and a perfect system of bookkeeping, in which it keeps an accurate account of the transactions of every human being engaged in the business of trying to get without giving. Sooner or later, its auditors come around, look over the records of individuals, both great and small, and demand an accounting. Wall Street, big business, capital predatory interests, or whatever name you choose to give the system which has given us American freedom, represents a group of men who understand, respect, and adapt themselves to this powerful law of economics. Their financial continuation depends upon their respecting the law. Most people living in America like this country, its capitalistic system and all. I must confess I know of no better country where one may find greater opportunities to accumulate riches. Judging by their acts and deeds, there are some in this country who do not like it. That, of course, is their privilege. If they do not like this country and its capitalistic system, its boundless opportunities, they have the privilege of clearing out. Always there are other countries such as Germany, Russia and Italy where one may try one's hand at enjoying freedom and accumulating riches, providing one is not too particular. America provides all of the freedom and all of the opportunity to accumulate riches that any honest person may require. When one goes hunting for game, one selects hunting grounds where game is plentiful. When one seeking riches, the same rule would naturally obtain. If it's riches you're seeking, do not overlook the possibilities of a country whose citizens are so rich that women alone spend over $200 million annually for lipsticks, rouge and cosmetics. Think twice, you who are seeking riches, before trying to destroy the capitalistic system of a country whose citizens spend over $50 million a year for greeting cards with which to express their appreciation of their freedom. If it's money you're seeking, consider carefully a country that spends hundreds of millions of dollars annually for cigarettes, the bulk of the income from which goes to only 4 major companies engaged in supplying this national builder of nonchalance and quiet nerves. By all means, give plenty of consideration to a country whose people spend annually more than $15 million for the privilege of seeing moving pictures, and toss in a few additional millions for liquor, narcotics, and other less potent soft drinks and giggle waters. Do not be in too big of a hurry to get away from a country whose people willingly, even eagerly, hand over millions of dollars annually for football, baseball, and prize fights. And by all means, stick by a country whose inhabitants give up more than $1 million a year for chewing gum and another million for safety razor blades. Remember also, this is but the beginning of available resources for the accumulation of wealth. Only a few of the luxuries and non-essentials have been mentioned. But remember that the business of producing, transporting, and marketing these few items of merchandise gives regular employment to many millions of men and women who receive for their services many millions of dollars monthly and spend it freely for both the luxuries and the necessities. Someone else like to read?
Yeah, I'll read.
Thank you.
Sorry, which line is it? 1662, is it? Hello?
1671.
Sorry, 1671.
1671, okay. Right. Especially remember that back of all this exchange of merchandise and personal services may be found an abundance of opportunity to accumulate riches. Here our American freedom comes to one aid. There is nothing to stop you or anyone from engaging in any portion of the effort necessary to carry on these businesses. If one has superior talent, training, experience, one may accumulate riches in large amounts. Those not so fortunate may accumulate smaller amounts. Anyone may earn a living in return of a very nominal amount of labor. So there you are. Opportunity has spread its wares before you. Step up to the front, select what you want, create your plan, put the plan into action, and follow through the persistence. Capitalistic America will do the rest. You can depend upon this much. Capitalistic America ensures every person the opportunity to render useful service and to collect riches in proportion to the value of the service. The system denies no one this right, but it does not and cannot promise something for nothing because of the system itself is irrevocable, controlled by the law of economics, which neither recognizes nor tolerates for long getting without giving. The law of economics was passed by nature. There is no Supreme Court to which violators of this law may appeal. The law hands out both penalties for its violation and appropriate rewards for its observance without interfering or the possibility of interference by any human being. The law cannot be repeated. It is as fixed as the stars in the heavens and subject to a part of the same system that controls the stars. May one refuse to adapt oneself to the law of economics? Certainly, this is a free country where all men are born with equal rights, including the privilege of ignoring the law of economics. What happens then? Well, nothing happens until large number of men join forces for the avowed purpose of ignoring the law and taking what they want to force. Then comes the dictator, with well organized firing squads and machine guns. We have not yet reached that stage in America, but we have heard all we want to know about how the system works. Perhaps we shall be fortunate enough not to demand personal knowledge of so gruesome a reality. Doubtless, we shall prefer to continue with our freedom of speech, freedom of deed, and freedom of render useful services in return for riches. I'll pass it on to someone.
The practice by government officials of extending to men and women the privilege of raiding the public treasury in return for votes sometimes results in election, but as night follows day, the final payoff comes, when every penny wrongfully used must be repaid with compound interest on compound interest. If those who make the grab are not forced to repay, the burden falls on their children and their children's children, even unto the third and fourth generations. There is no way to avoid the debt. Men can, and sometimes do, form themselves into groups for the purpose of crowding wages up and working hours down. There is a point beyond which they cannot go. It is the point at which the law of economics steps in and the sheriff gets both the employer and the employees. For 6 years, from 1929 to 1935, the people of America, both rich and poor, barely missed seeing the old man economics hand over to the sheriff all the businesses and industries and banks. It was not a pretty sight. It did not increase our respect for mob psychology, through which men cast reason to the winds and start trying to get without giving. We who went through those 6 discouraging years when fear was in the saddle and faith was on the ground cannot forget how ruthlessly the law of economics exacted its tolls from both rich and poor, weak and strong, old and young. We shall not wish to go through another such experience. These observations are not founded upon short-time experience. They are the result of 25 years of careful analysis of the methods of both the most successful and the most unsuccessful men America has known. I'll pass.
Thanks, Bill. So, what is the point he's getting across here?
The point here, in all that we've read today, is exchanging service for money, basically. Okay, and you can't do it all yourself. So, as in the case of the breakfast for 20 cents for 2 people, but you know, you need business. You need people who are willing to go out and do those things, such as getting the bananas and the wheat and what have you, making the bread, so that you can live your life, I'll say comfortably, as long as you are also returning service for your money, so that you can buy those products.
Right. Would everyone like to unmute themselves so we can have a discussion?
Yeah, he pretty much said over and over and over and over again, you have to give to get. There is no getting for nothing.
Yeah. People give it a pretty good go, though, don't they? Sometimes.
Yes, they do sometimes.
Well, as Maggie Thatcher once said, the one problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good way to put it.
He says on line 1696 that the law of economics was passed by nature. So what I noted from that is basically the law of economics is the law of cause and effect.
Yes.
And it's always going to sort itself out, even if there are politicians or whoever would try to influence it, eventually it all balances itself.
That's right. And he refers to the depression there over in the area of line 1732, where he's talking about how, you know, certain
Yeah,
groups.
6 years or
Yeah.
was that the one?
It's in that area somewhere. But the general idea is that, you know, once that mindset is there with so many people, that the system just can't handle it anymore, and so they were thrown into a depression which shook everyone up and then brought the balance back at the end of it.
And the only thing that brought us out of the Depression, actually, a couple of interesting things that most people are not aware of. There was a depression in the 20s, in the earlier 20s, late 19 teens and early 20s, that was much deeper and but much shorter in duration. What happened there was government basically got out of the way of businesses, and business took off. The Great Depression of 29 to 35, government tried to tax its way out of the Depression by putting up all kinds of social programs, and the only thing that got us out of the Depression was World War II. But that's you know, one of the problems today with a lot of governments. You know, they're now going into the, oh, we'll tax the rich and give to the poor or somebody, and go after Wall Street.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that philosophy is going to fail.
There's got to be another solution, though, you know, because it's really not been working well. That's why so many people are coming back, you know, trying to go against that, because they don't understand, or none of us really understand a better solution, because we've got those that are in office or trying to go into office who are basically being like a puppet. They're being like a dictator.
That's interesting comment, that this was written a long time before industry had become the plaything of finance. That
Yeah.
there was the banking industry and the finance industry, and there was the manufacturing industry, and there were service industries. Now they are all the plaything of capital, at least in the United States. And it's evidenced by two studies. One is American politicians in Washington, D.C. have to spend 80% of their time on campaign funding, soliciting contributions so they have a chance to get elected. And these are people, whether they've been there a few years or whether they've been there for decades. The ones that have been there for decades are generally social servants and really want to see America succeed as a capitalist society. But this law cites two extremes indirectly, political party extremes between Democrats, which the recent backlash and the huge division between the upper class and the lower class, while the middle class has been absolutely decimated in the United States the past few decades. But at the other extreme are the Republicans that say, no, capitalism always takes care of itself. Free capitalism always takes care of itself. It only takes care of those that acquire the substantial amount of resources.
Right.
A lot of this is still true and genuine in the United States, but businesses have no incentive to reward their employees, no incentives to train their employees. There was a study done that any business that invests in lobbying, going to Washington, D.C., trying to persuade the political machine to change rules and regulations for their own interest, any business that does that, whether it's Hollywood or whether it's the banking industry, they get a 9-time payoff within 5 years. So the amazing fact of this is a lot of it is still true and valid, that there are many business owners that still subscribe to the underlying principle behind this, that if you take care of your employees, they will take care of you. And it's evidenced by the fact that business has a virtual guarantee. They invest $1 million lobbying in Wall Street. Within 5 years, they're going to receive $9 million, almost guaranteed. And they still invest over $400 billion per year in training and development. That's what really amazes me, is that there are a lot of business owners and decision makers that ignore the immediate payoffs of lobbying on Wall Street.
And the problem is the career politicians.
What I found interesting in this, the latter part of this chapter, was about how when something has been wrongfully done by way of business, that there's the repayment is going to have to be made. And it doesn't matter how long it's going to take, it's going to have to be made. And that's according to the laws of economics. And I thought that was very interesting, that there's no way around it.
That's right. And there's a lot of people out there with the mindset. I know, especially here in Australia, we see a lot of people who are receiving government subsidy. And I found it quite interesting how he talked about the people who didn't want to be woken up out of bed at 7 o'clock in the morning for their check to be delivered. That mindset is very strong here in Australia, especially among the younger generation. And in the societies where there's a lot of drug taking happening, they believe that society owes them something because they've been exposed to drugs or they've had a bad home life or whatever has happened to them. They believe that society owes them something, and so they complain about having to go into the family assistance office and fill out a form to say that they've applied for a couple of jobs this week. It's pretty hard to go and do that to be able to get their paycheck, and it's a real issue here with their attitude. But on the same token, they're never going to get the happiness that all of us know that we can get through giving to be able to receive.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that happens. I would imagine it happens anywhere, because it happens here in America too, with the poor, the ones that have kind of have that victim mentality. You know, it's like people owe them something, or if they don't get it, then it's oh poor me, or they feel like they have to beg just to get their own wants, or it's a cycle.
Let me tell you a good one. I've just a few days ago I found out that here in France there are some people that get 100% of their ex-salary when they get fired or whatever. What's the word? When they are unemployed. And most of them, I think, get between 80% and 100%. So basically, it's just fine to stay at home. You get the same amount of money.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Well, there was also a study. I forget which Scandinavian country it was, but I think it was the Netherlands, but I might be mistaken. They allowed people to be on unemployment for up to 5 years. And what was interesting was that the average length of time that a person was on unemployment was about 4 years and 9 months.
That's interesting. It probably was some of the Scandinavian countries have utilized socialist ideas in the well-being of their society, and in Western countries like in the UK and Australia and the United States, it would never work at the same level because we don't have the care and the thoughtfulness and the concern for our neighbors to the same extent. So I think a big part of whether or not socialism will work is overall concern for the well-being of your fellow citizens. In Norway or other Scandinavian countries, people talk about outrageous amounts of taxes that are 40 to 60%. It doesn't squash their productivity, though. That they're happy to pay their 40 to 50% in taxes. In the United States, we complain about 20% income taxes, but in the United States, we have to pay taxes on everything. In the UK and in Australia, you have to pay VAT. So when you add up everything, we're dressed up as being in a capitalist society, but our taxes are already 40 or 50%. And we're missing out on a lot of the benefits that smaller countries with a much stronger thoughtfulness towards the overall well-being of the population, where some socialist policies, like socialized healthcare, for instance, works really well. Where when people become unemployed, they automatically know that when they're unemployed, they're going to have to go out and sweep the street or pick up garbage or do work at the airport. They're going to have to perform some civil service to get any type of unemployment compensation whatsoever, that they don't get to just do nothing. with a couple of minor exceptions, one being childcare leave, which they tend to offer for male or females, one member of the family, whoever chooses to take it. And so they get extended childcare leave for the child's first year, but only for the first year. And then after that, there's no more free rides. You go back to work.
They've tried to bring a system in here in Australia where people work for what we call the dole, but they've found that the issues of supervision and safety, it's too much of an infrastructure to set up to worry about doing it. So they've left the majority of the people just sitting at home doing nothing.
What's the system there, Nicole?
They basically put in a form to prove that they have been able to work out of work for at least 6 weeks, and they receive a fortnightly deposit into their bank account.
So is it a capitalistic a little bit that they're doing?
Yes, it's a similar system here to America.
Okay. Okay.
Well, isn't it extra work just to police people that, you know, you have to prove they did search for work and couldn't find it and whatever?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have to fill in a
That's
form
right.
to say they did look for work. However, there are a lot of loopholes, and I'm aware of some people, especially if they've been involved with drugs, they're exempt from certain job search requirements, and it becomes very easy for people, long-term recipients, to stay where they are.
You know what, guys? I just want to let you know, while I was reading the chapter with you, I felt very grateful because I was thinking about my breakfast and how abundant it is and where the stuff came from. And I don't know, I just felt really grateful for this chapter.
Cool. There's an interesting Buddhist meditation where you pause. I think I read it in one of Thich Nhat Hanh books, where you pause and you think of every single individual that might have had to handle everything on your plate.
Wow.
Instead of saying prayers, you take a moment to pause and bless. And it's so funny when we do it at my table. My son will be like, "Oh, bless the pig. I hope it didn't suffer." And, you know, the farmers that pick the radishes and all this kind of stuff. So.
What a great idea.
Yeah, what a better mob psychology that is.
It really gives you lots to be grateful for when you start looking at things in another way.
Well, he starts out on line 3047. It basically says abundance is at our fingertips. How was it? In return for very modest effort.
Exactly.
And that's all because of organized capital, how he likes to put it.
And I have to say that before reading this, you know, this has been a fact of my entire life that this has been available to me, that I've taken it for granted. I'm very
True.
that it brought it back to perspective.
Because basically, I saw this somewhere, can't remember where, but it's a very good point that we've gotten used to dodge money by just money, but actually it's your time. So basically, to earn $100, you would work X amount of time. When you're buying something of $50, that would mean half of your work time. That's the way we should look at it. Not in dollars, but in time, as in how much time did I make that money, that much money? Or how much time would it cost me to buy that TV, for example? If I want a big screen TV, that means 1 month's work.
Good idea. Keep things in perspective.
Excuse me?
That's a good way to keep things in perspective.
Oh.
So just out of curiosity, if we were to just generalize and say entitlements, whether it's subsidies to the poor to bring up their substandard of living at least to the poverty line and make sure they can eat, or whether it's subsidies to businesses that have a few politicians or a few political arms in their pocket, effectively, they get huge subsidies. Those are also entitlements. In a way, it allows them to evade the principal underlying theme of this reading, which is we have to be responsible. We have to give value in exchange for compensation. So as soon as entitlements come in, they are addictive to anyone, whether it's someone on unemployment, like the study that said you can only be on unemployment for 5 years, so the average length is 4.9 years, or whether it's subsidies to a given industry. As soon as they receive those subsidies, there's a psychological factor that allow them to slack and avoid bringing fair value for fair compensation, which is what this chapter is saying. So what would be some suggestions to remove that psychological addiction to these entitlements? Any thoughts?
I agree. That's difficult because you do see that happening, and there is a mentality behind it. So I guess it's a difficult one to try and work out what would be the answer to that.
Well, somebody that I've have been reading, has been making the point that charity is not the answer. Helping people to become aware is what we should be doing, so that they can understand the laws and make their own way, rather than giving charity.
Well, but the problem there is they don't care. Okay, even if they were aware, they wouldn't care as long as they're getting the money, if you will, for nothing.
True.
Okay, which is human nature. So the whole thing, I think, is we need government to reevaluate every program, every corporate welfare scheme, and say, okay, we understand that people are, can't pay their rent or can't pay their heating bills or whatever, and I don't have a problem helping those people out. But by the same token, it's many, many generations of people in doing the exact same thing. So you've got to wean these people off in such a way that they become productive members of society as opposed to leeches on society. Same thing on corporate welfare. I mean, we had a situation here in the United States a couple of years back where we gave basically $500 million or more to a solar panel manufacturer who went and declared bankruptcy and didn't have to pay anything back to the federal government. Okay, the federal government should not be in the business of picking winners and losers in industry. That's what this chapter is basically saying. If you do what you're supposed to do, okay, and you have a product or a service that is desired, then you will make money. If you have a product or service that no one wants, you're not going to make money.
Well, but you can have products and service that people need, but they don't buy from you if you have a paradigm that you can't sell it. So, and you were talking about
that's another thing. I'm talking about, okay, go sell snow to Eskimos. Okay, now you might be able to sell snow to ski facilities in Colorado or wherever, but the Eskimos don't need snow. They've got all they want, and then some.
Actually, there are like 100 different kinds of snows, and some of them are difficult to find. But no, that's not the thing. Is I believe what should be done about it is to get these people emotionally involved, to actually make them realize that there are things that they do desire. Because the desire, Bob says that desire is a triggering mechanism to release energy from within. And most people just don't have a desire because they don't think that they can get it because of the paradigms that they do have. Before they can even think about wanting something, they're already discouraged because they don't know that they can get it. So we got to get the people emotionally involved into something so that they will move.
So perhaps some kind of an educational system for people who are on benefits to help them to get specialised knowledge perhaps, or self-confidence, those types of educational programs for people who are long-term recipients.
Unless
well, I think it even starts earlier than that. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, yes,
I agree.
you know, education for the people who are out of work, you know, could be very good, but start where, you know, with the children and teach them these principles.
Teach them self-reliance.
It's true.
That's right.
Earlier in the chapter, Napoleon Hill mentions that it's usually third, fourth, fifth generation. So it is a mindset that we need to shift.
Exactly. I've seen it. You know, I'm probably the oldest one here, and I grew up in New York City, and I watched people in New York who were, you know, second, third, fourth generation on welfare, and they had no desire to get off of it because the government was housing them. The government was feeding them. They had money for things that my family, when I was a child, my family couldn't afford certain things, and they were getting it for nothing. So why should they get off of welfare?
Absolutely.
And that was their philosophy.
The challenge, I think, is that if we look at benefits versus penalties, all of the penalties are long-term. Even this chapter says the consequences, sooner or later, longer-term consequences for an economy or society that makes faulty decisions. Take the Roman Empire, for instance. It took a couple of centuries for it to fall, despite the long-term declines and all the chaos that ensued afterwards. And it's not going to be any different for Western capitalist societies if they fail. It'll take quite a few centuries for them to completely fail. But the benefits for an individual are immediate. So there's either benefits or there's penalties. One book that's really excellent by a professor is called Nudge, N-U-D-G-E. The professor's name is Thaler, T-H-A-L-E-R, and he talks about various economic policies and ideas to change individuals' decision-making or businesses' decision-making. This is one case in point. I don't remember if it was Denmark or Belgium. It was one of the European or Northern European countries dealing with incidents of drunk driving. You drive drunk, you get arrested, there's a penalty. In the United States, there's substantial financial penalties, and with repeated offenders, there's some jail time for driving under the influence of alcohol. And in their society, they said, well, let's take the worst civil service job that anybody would want, and let's force anyone guilty of drunk driving to have to work in that job for like 3 years. Whether it was like the complaint department at the airport or something like that, it was really the lowest of the low, the least desirable job that any individual would want to have. And lo and behold, they have a very, very low incidence of drunk driving in that country once a decade or 5 years had passed and people really realized that is a consequence that I'm just not willing to bear, to risk driving drunk, so no one drives drunk.
Yeah, and that's a good area to put the energy into, creating a consequence, because that it does infringe upon other people's rights. Whereas, you know, we pay our taxes and that pays for the welfare that people are on, but it's not quite infringing upon our rights as much as drunk drivers do. So I guess what I'm saying is that that is a good area to definitely put our energy into putting consequences in there. However, with people who choose to sit on welfare rather than do anything with their lives, sometimes it just comes down to the fact that that's their choice, and there's not very much we can do about it except for continue to get this knowledge out there.
I would like to ask everybody a question. Why do you think that America, which is how long? 400 years old, has become the richest country in the world. And on the other side, we have Africa with they do have lots of resources. They have diamonds excavated by other people, but not put into value by them. How come they? I mean, there was always that jungle type of, what's the word? Organization. So they have revolts and they kill each other and whatever, exactly what Napoleon was talking about with force. How come America has evolved so fast and other countries did not?
Well, I think one reason is that America was founded by basically Western Europeans. Okay, you have the English, the French, who were at the time all industrious societies. So, I mean, you had even going back the 250 years for the United States, you had, in all of the countries in, Western Europe and, Italy, Spain, you had banking, you had industry, and people came from those societies and realized that right after the initial colonies, where we had I'll call it pretty much socialist society for the initial colonies, but they all realized that we need people who are going to fish, we need people who are going to farm, we need people who are going to transport things from one town to another town. And again, that's all monetary. Whereas if you look at Africa, you've got the tribal societies, and everything there historically was basically a socialist society. If you take a look at pretty much the Indian tribes in the United States, okay, again, it was pretty much a socialist society.
Would you agree it was founded on a different mentality, whereas the others, they're more like perpetuating paradigms, old paradigms?
Well, yeah.
That's an interesting perspective. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, it is. It is the paradigm of the people who are in that society. So, I mean, if you take a look at tribal societies, the group of men will go out and hunt. They will bring back the kill, and the entire tribe or town or whatever will eat. Okay? Whereas, when you take a look at Europe and how... so if you take a look at, a European society going back, 400, 500, 600 years and even further, there was a lot. There was, you had money and trade town to town. So that's the paradigm of the people in those countries.
Have any of you read Paul Zane Pilzer's Unlimited Wealth?
No.
It's quite an astonishing book. That's
How
the
do
book
you
that made me go ahead, Kim.
How do you spell the author's name?
So it's Paul.
Is that Paul Zane Pilzer?
Yes.
Okay, I'll get you the exact spelling. Hang on.
No, that's our.
I've got
PaulZanePilzer. Paul Zane Pilzer. Unlimited Wealth.
Yeah, it's 3 words.
Yeah. Basically, that's the book that got me to realize that we do live in an infinite, a universe of infinite abundance. I know he said about, there's an example about oil, and before people were using whale oil. And just as about they were running out, they found or came up or invented or whatever, oil, natural oil, the one which we use now. And the point is, every time it seems like we run out of resources, there's always going to be a substitute, or we're going to figure out a way to create energy from a different source. So it's, you can't, like Bob says, you take abundance and abundance remains. And that's what we see happening now with the electric cars. Yeah,
and when you look at the electric cars, okay, the one thing that's holding them back right now is, well, actually, I'll say 2 things. Excuse me?
Paradigms.
Well, no, not the paradigm. The 2 things as far as, okay, you've got, where can you charge your car if you're going away from home? Okay, and how long does it take to charge it? So you can't take an electric car on an extended road trip where you have to, drive for 4 hours and charge the car for 8 hours. And where are you going to find charging stations to do that? Okay, same type of thing with natural gas. There are natural gas vehicles, but mostly within a city where you might have places where you can fill your car with the natural gas. But if you're taking a road trip, you might not be able to do that.
No, I got your point.
The infrastructure has to be built.
Well, anyway, I was saying there actually is an infinite abundance of supply. As in, it's only in our mind that we see it as limited.
Agreed.
The supply, even though before they were using whale oil, that maybe ran out and they switched to natural oil, gas. But the source of the supply is always infinite, even though it comes in different forms.
Yeah, and if it runs out, they'll find another form.
Exactly.
Or find it from somewhere else.
Yeah, and what I was going to add to that was, like, crossing over into the Science of Getting Rich book. He also says that if more of something is needed, more gold is needed. If we run out of money, that more gold will appear in the mountains to be mined. Exactly. It will come. It will appear.
Yeah, and that's similar to the abundance mindset too. A lot of people, if they go to business college, they're taught that, and I was talking about this with someone the other day, there's a piece of pie, and if you're in a certain area of industry, you need to get out there and get your piece of pie, because there's only so many pieces of pie. But in reality, we understand that abundance is abundant and there is no piece of pie, and you don't take your abundance from someone else. There is an unlimited source, and it's a similar principle where, whatever you need to fulfill your life, to be able to grow and give and have all the things that you want and be, there is an unlimited source of whatever you need to accomplish whatever you need to do.
You don't compete, you create.
Exactly.
Yes.
The pioneers that brought the word forward.
Well, I would just like to add something here. When we say that, obviously there is an abundance in the universe everywhere. If you go outside the galaxy, there's so many galaxies. If you look at air, there's abundance of air. If you look at human beings, there are so many billions of human beings on the earth. Everything is abundant, that's true. But if we think about it in a perspective in which, initially we were discussing that people in the society have a mindset where if somebody has a mindset of an abundance, whereas on the other hand, There are people in the society where they are become leeches, to the society, not adding anything. They just want to take, they don't want to give anything back into the society. So those two mindsets. So, for example, if a person has an abundant mindset, and as per maybe Bob's understanding, in the book, that you're providing a service and you have an abundant mindset, so you will, as per the law of economics, you will get a return as well. Whereas on other people in the society where maybe they don't have an abundant mindset, but they just have a mindset where they are leeching, they're just getting something out of the society, but not providing anything back in there.
I just came up with a joke right now. As in,
Sorry?
yeah, I came up with a joke this instant while we were talking, and I was thinking, yeah, it doesn't suffice to only have the abundance mentality. You also need to be aware of the law of compensation. Otherwise, you could have the abundance mentality and think, yeah, there's an abundance everywhere. Give it all to me.
Yeah, it has to be just like, you're riding a bike, if you're tilting toward the right, you have to tilt toward the left as well to balance your bike. If you have
Exactly.
an abundant mindset, you're moving along your bicycle. You can't just go toward the right and say, okay, I have an abundance and I'm gonna just get everything out of there,
Give me more.
not caring, not caring about anyone else, which is obviously a wrong mindset from a humanitarian point of view. As you rightly mentioned, that there are places on earth, like Africa and so many other regions where they do have resources, but they don't have that mindset of providing service and get that energy moving in that society. There's a balanced energy. People in those countries, they just have a mindset that we just take it. If somebody comes to them and give it to
Yeah,
them, they
that's
will take it. That's it.
Yeah,
other people go there and mine their gold and diamonds and whatever, and they're like, oh, okay,
yeah.
I
So
can
we
do that.
talk about
Interesting.
individuals having a self-image where their image of themselves holds them back from things that they could possibly be doing, because we know we're all unlimited, but you have an idea of yourself and what you're capable of. And I feel that the countries have a mob image as well, which
Yeah,
talks about here mob psychology, or an image of themselves in that country, and they can't think beyond that image unless they're educated to do that.
It's very interesting point. I was thinking in terms of abundance mentality, scarcity mentality, that the greedy business owner sees a scarcity of resources, and the long-term welfare recipient sees a scarcity of opportunities, or a scarcity of skills of being able to utilize any potential opportunity.
very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just love the way he said the law of economics was passed by nature. It will always settle itself out.
It just
And
came to my mind now. I don't know. I'm just visualizing it as if you are planting. You've got a garden in your backyard or somewhere. You want to plant the seed, and you do plant your seed. You go out there. You put the seed in the mud. You put all your fertilizers in there. You make sure there's enough air, and you make sure there's enough light in there to grow that plant. So that is all nature. Uh, and if you don't provide all those things, then just think, the plant is going to grow somehow, from somewhere. Then it's not going to happen, because you have to look at as you said, there's a law of economics there, and you have to abide by it to go and plant the seed. If you sow the plant, and you do your bit of work, in the society,
yeah,
obviously you're
and
going to get it back.
organize.
And
You have to
nature
water
is
the plant, grow it.
basically a law of abundance, because if you consider you plant one seed, you get a plant let's say you get one fruit out of that plant, how many seeds are in that fruit?
Very good point. Yeah. So many. Yeah.
Exactly.
And so if you keep planting, one seed and you get the fruit, and then you plant another one, it's going to eventually grow.
That's right. And also the environment has to be right for that to grow. So there needs to be water, there needs to be minerals in the soil, and there's certain things that have to be given in order for that to grow. So those elements also apply.
In an organized fashion.
Right. And come back to this chapter, okay, when you think about it, one of the reasons that the United States flourished is that it's a capitalist society, and people, people will do things for, because they might be needed, but in general, they'll do things because there's a reward associated with it as well. So if you consider, like, where do many of the scientific innovations come from? It's the capitalist countries. Okay? The other societies take what we have developed, and we being the capitalist societies, and then use them. Okay? But you're not getting the innovation out of those other societies.
So what do you mean? Sorry. So if there's something being developed in the society, then?
Well, yeah. I mean, we were just talking about, okay, if you're planting seeds, you need to have the proper environment for those seeds to grow.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So if let's say you have a mouse trap. Okay, well, it works, and somebody builds a better mousetrap. Why would they do that? Okay, well, there was a mousetrap that worked. It was perfectly fine, but they saw an opportunity to market the better mousetrap. If I had a better mousetrap, I can sell that and make some money. Okay, so innovation often comes in a capitalist society where it may not come in a socialist society.
Because you have that freedom.
I would give you an example. Maybe, I don't know. There's places like, Asian countries, where there's a lot of scarcity, resources, electricity, a lot of other problems, jobs and things like that. But they, obviously, they are living in a society where they don't have abundance around them. They don't have those resources. But having said, when people are depressed, they are put into a situation where they have been deprived of these things, which should be given to them, and they don't have those things in the society. They do come up with so many innovations and things, which other people then take on and move forward in their lives. I've seen such examples, where people have innovated so many things, maybe producing electricity from small systems, coming up with an innovative idea, things like that, because they're depressed. They want to prove themselves. They have seen there's so much in a capitalistic society. People are moving forward in that society. Obviously, they have been given research and grants and everything, where they can excel. But in a situation, for example, there is a garden, and in that garden, obviously there is not enough fertile soil and everything. Obviously, the plant is not going to grow, and everyone is not going to be in a flourish situation. But in a society, we see those societies that people do come up, obviously not in that quantity, or not in that bigger scale, but people, because they have been deprived in those situations, they obviously, every human being has an instinct to prove themselves, you know, whatever qualities they have. If they've been given such qualities, they want to come out and prove themselves, you know. I don't know, what do you think about that?
I think that was dependent on their environment as well. So the environment that they were in caused them the need to come up with the various innovative ideas that they come up with, like you were saying about having electricity through another source, which is innovative. And in the more developed countries, the innovation is not perhaps through necessity, but through want and other reasons as well. So depending on the environment, what was feeding the motive behind them was the denominating factor for the outcome of the innovation.
Well, I would say necessity only takes you to one point. I mean, up to one point. If it's food you need, you'll do whatever it takes to have your belly full, but once it's full, you stop. You're okay, I'm done. You don't have any more enthusiasm to grow further from that point, in my view.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, we have the answer right on line 1486. Steamships and railroads do not spring up from the earth and function automatically. They come in response to the call of civilization through the labor and ingenuity and organizing ability of man, who have imagination, faith, enthusiasm, decision, and persistence. So use your imagination, you come up with something new. But I think it was Bob who said you can't use your higher faculties when you're hungry, stressed, poor, sick. So you have to have those minimum needs met. But from that point on, it's like Nicole said, you need the good environment. What Napoleon Hill suggests is capitalism.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you know, if you think about it, there was always, I won't say always, but for many years, you could sail your way across the Atlantic Ocean or any ocean, okay? But once people were on both sides of, let's say, the Atlantic, and they wanted to go back and forth, you needed better ways of doing it. And each person isn't going to figure out how to build a powered ship. So hence, you know, a capitalist society built the powered ships.
Yeah. I really like the point just after where Vlad was talking about that, and it goes along with what you were saying too, Bill, with rendering service. So I think it starts in line 1491. These people who have put themselves out there and created this capitalist nation, they were motivated by the desire to build, construct, achieve, render useful service, earn profits and accumulate riches. And because they rendered service without which there would be no civilization. So they put themselves in the way of great riches. So they're giving us a pattern to follow where they rendered the service, set up a system where others could render service to receive profits as well.
Yeah, and they came up with an idea of how to improve things and at the same time accumulate some riches out of it.
Yeah.
And always have that feeling of growth. I mean, imagine going to work or working on whatever it is, and then you get, I don't know, taxed 15%, 17%. You build something and you have to give away half. The second time you don't want to do it anymore. Even though you have that desire, you'll be constrained. Whereas, in my opinion, freedom is the ultimate key to unlock your your higher faculties, your ability to create, to express yourself, and spirit.
And that's one of the things that happened with like early American colonies. They started out, everybody, getting, X amount of the land or whatever. And you had people who were growing more food than they needed. So other people were getting food that they were, and they weren't necessarily growing it. They were just sitting there waiting for food to come to them.
Yeah,
okay,
socialism.
and that became a problem in those little communities.
Exactly. Like, if I'm the best fisherman, I can fish 10 fish an hour, you can fish 1 fish an hour. Why would I keep fishing on those 9 extra fish when I could just fish 1? If I don't
Or
get anything
think about
back
it this way: if what's going on is, okay, well, the community needed 10 fish or 11 fish, and you're keeping 1, okay, the other guy is keeping his 1, and you're providing the other 9 to the community with, let's say, no compensation, okay, and the other people are just sitting there waiting for you to bring the fish in, you're going to resent it.
Exactly. And why not if I'm the best fisherman, I go fish. You, if you're the best hut builder or the roof builder, you build everyone, each one of us, you build the roof. Another one is a great teacher, that's his ability. He can teach our children in our tribe. So everyone benefits from each
right. So as
individual
long
person
as
is
everyone is actually contributing to the society, then socialism can work. Okay, but once you have people who are not contributing, that builds resentment, and socialism fails.
You have resentment on one side and victim mentality. I mean, people not working and demanding stuff on the other side. Whereas capitalism, the one who works more gets more, which is absolutely fine.
In the early days, there was some barter system as well. I don't know, it just came to my mind. In those days, obviously there was people only had skills. There was no concept of money. People had just skills, and there was only resources available to them by nature. So they just went out. People, as you said, people did fishing. Somebody would know how to do wood cutting. Somebody knew how to do maybe making a boat. Somebody knew how to, get poultry, eggs and stuff. So in those days, people were just providing a service to each other, and whatever
Yeah,
service they were
and
providing, they were getting something in return from, and they were flourishing.
right, and a barter system is just like, if you consider money, think about a barter system where, okay, you're fishing, you bring in 10 fish, okay, you need 1, so you have 9 more to provide to somebody else. Well, let's say somebody is cutting wood, okay, I'll trade you X amount of fish for X amount of, however much wood, okay, and that worked out well. But let's say you didn't need the wood, and you didn't have somebody else who needed the, immediately who needed the fish, okay, that you could actually just trade for. That's why money came into being, okay, and it was, it was more of a matter of a way of managing the barter system, but going through other people. So that, okay, I don't need the wood, but I need the grain, and somebody is providing the woodcutter with the grain. Okay, so then that's the way the money came into being pretty much. Okay, and the marketplace,
which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Especially to any of you that are familiar with the socialist method that's being used. I'm wondering, how do they solve the challenges for those that are really unable to work, like the disabled? Do they find a way that they can be a contribution in some way, or what is a way to build up something? I guess in any system, even in the capitalist system, what's the way to help those that be able to help themselves that aren't really able to do very much?
Well, if you go back to the tribal mentality, okay, tribal cultures, okay, widows and orphans were always taken care of. Okay, they didn't necessarily provide anything for the community themselves, but the community took care of them. Okay, so in a socialist environments, or even capitalist environments, okay, you in capitalist societies, you always had charity, the churches or charitable organizations which would take care of the widows and orphans. And again, I'm just using that as one class of people. So you always had the people who were I'll say disabled, okay, could not do. The society took care of them.
Right. So then is that, I guess that's totally different then, isn't it, than what the welfare system is? It's basically kind of giving people a handout.
Yeah, that's right. A completely different situation. Okay. Although there is, I guess, the concern that some people who may be partially disabled who receive a subsidy could hinder themselves in that they then feel that they don't need to do something to contribute, which could hold them back from their potential. So there still needs to be some kind of a educational system there to still help people to contribute, because they need to do that for themselves, for their own well-being.
Right, and
so, great point.
And welfare came into being during the Depression in the United States, where there was no work and people had to live. And I remember talking to my grandmother, and to take welfare, people just wouldn't do it because they considered themselves, or they took it, second-class citizens. And back then, part of it was when you got back on your feet, you repaid it, and then the whole program morphed into what it is today, which is an entitlement program, which shouldn't be.
Oh, okay. So that's the okay.
That's
it's a very
idea.
good point, Nicole, about reminding us that as animals, we have a unique need to contribute, to be healthy and whole. And a lot of Napoleon Hill's messages give value with no expectation in return other than exchange of value for my services.
Yeah, and he talks about going the extra mile as well, which isn't a necessity, but even if it was just for the feeling that it gave yourself is a good enough reason to go the extra mile in everything you do.
A sense of purpose. I think it's I've seen some things where they took nursing homes. Once you take retirees and their health starts to fail, they have a very limited purpose. They have no clear avenues of giving back unless they've taken a lot of initiative themselves to do so. But they took a daycare center and merged it with a nursing home center for the children and for the senior citizens. And what an outstanding idea.
I actually do that myself. I have a childcare business, and once a month I take them to our local nursing home for a play session, and it's just the most fantastic thing I've ever seen.
Oh, that's very cool. My laughter yoga instructor keeps telling me, bring more sessions into the retirement centers. It's a great learning experience.
Yeah, because the older people, they have so much to give, just from their experiences, that everybody could learn from them.
It's true, we do, and the children feel so special because it lights up. When we walk into the room, you see everyone's eyes light up, and the children just feel so special. They're all under 5, so there's not much vocabulary there, but there doesn't need to be because it's all body language, and you can feel the energy. It's just an amazing thing. But yeah, they just have so much to give the children, and the children have so much to give them, and it's just an amazing. It's amazing.
I gotta head off, but it was great being on the call with you guys.
Thanks, Kelly. I think maybe we should finish there. We've done a good hour and a half today.
Yeah, that was really good.
You've been productive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great, you guys. Okay.
Have a successful week, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Likewise.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great one.
Have a great Sunday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank everyone for your input. I'm grateful.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Nicole. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.